You are listening to Perplexity.
Today, video games are one of the most popular forms of escapism worldwide. One of my favorite things to do on a Saturday morning or to decompress after a long day of work is play a video game. Among my personal favorites are Spider-Man and The Last of Us. But just like anything else, even something fun and seemingly great like a video game can have a darker side. According to creepybonfire.com, lurking within this realm of pixels and virtual adventures lies something darker. I came across 5 urban legends discussing allegedly cursed video games. There's allegations of mind control, mind erasing, hearing voices, experiencing paranormal activity, subliminal messaging, and much, much more. So now the question is, are any of these games actually cursed? Today, we will be discussing 5 cursed video games. Hello, everybody, and welcome back to another episode of Perplexity, a mystery podcast. As always, I am your host, Kaydra, and if you're new to the show, welcome. I tell tales every single week that have perplexed me. So if you love a good mystery that leaves you wanting more, don't worry, you're in the right place. And if you end up enjoying today's episode, I would love if you continue to follow along. If you are a returning listener, hello, my friends. Welcome back. So happy you're here. And I have a great episode for today to finish out September. We are about to get into my favorite month, October. And don't worry, I have tons of stuff coming for you guys that I'm super excited about. But I thought we would kick this off with something spooky and kind of following the theme of my Friday the 13th episode, another cursed episode. A lot of big podcasts cover things like cursed games, so cursed ritualistic types of games that you can play. So today I wanted to do something a little bit different and bring you guys some cursed video games. But with that being said, I am starting a new series on my Patreon called Cursed Games, and that is going to be exclusively at those $3 and above tiers. So if you end up liking this episode and you want to hear some more cursed games, definitely go check out the Patreon. I am discussing all kinds of creepy games, the Midnight Game, Three Kings, things like that. So check that out if you want more. I release bonus content on there nearly every week, and you can get early and ad-free episodes at just $1 a month. And everybody, don't forget, save the date, Wednesday, October 30th at 8 p.m. Central. I am having my second virtual live show, and this will be to celebrate Halloween, but also to celebrate 100 episodes. So be sure to subscribe to the YouTube channel if you haven't, Perplexity Mystery Podcast, because the show will be on YouTube Live. I've got some fun stuff planned. You don't want to miss it. I am also continuing to gather listener stories for Halloween, and I'm always looking for your spooky, creepy, mysterious happenstances, so send those stories, please, to perplexitymysterypodcast@gmail.com. Trigger warning for today's episode: this podcast is not for children, listener discretion is advised, and all of the sources that were used for today's episode will be available down in the show notes. So, without further ado, let's get into this crazy episode all about 5 allegedly cursed video games. Legend of Zelda: Majora's Mask. The game, released in 2000, is not inherently cursed, but its dark and twisted storyline seems to have inspired an urban legend that became known as the Been Drowned Saga. The legend revolves around a creepypasta that first appeared in 2010 on 4chan's X board. 4chan is similar to Reddit. The end result was an incredibly elaborate and entertaining, nearly year-long internet hoax. There were multiple posts coming out, totaling over 3 million words and 382 minutes of footage. Creepypastas and alleged first-hand accounts also persisted after these 4chan posts came out, continuing to fuel the belief that an otherworldly curse resides within this Legend of Zelda game, haunting those who dare to play it. So according to the original Been Drowned post on 4chan, a sophomore in an undisclosed college named Jaducible received a second-hand Nintendo 64 from a friend and bought a nondescript Majora's Mask cartridge from an eccentric old man. While playing the game, Jaducible began to notice missing graphics and strange connections to a boy named Ben, who was said to have died 8 years prior, from within the game. The story attracted believers throughout the Zelda community. Jaducible later revealed the story was simply an experiment in testing the gullibility of readers. The story was written into 3 separate parts: the Haunted Cartridge arc, Moon Children arc, and Hubris arc. And as you can imagine, it takes a very long time to read. Like I said, it's over 3 million words and 382 minutes of video footage. So I will link a detailed 45-minute read that I was able to find in the show notes for people who want to learn more. But this makes sense to me timeline-wise, like when this came out, because I remember Marble Hornets coming out on YouTube, and it was in 2009. Marble Hornets was part of the Slender Man urban legend, and they released some very creepy videos that became very popular. So this was right around that time as well. Additionally, you can't deny the creepiness of the game. In a true Zelda subreddit, Reddit user Hal_Keaton explains their experience when they played Majora's Mask. They say, quote, "It's not scary, but it is unsettling. The whole world has this dichotomy to it. On one hand, you have silly enemies and bright colors everywhere. You have milk bars instead of alcoholic bars, and funny NPCs. But then, behind the colorful facade, there is this oppressive atmosphere. Like, after you save Romany from aliens, you can take a carriage ride with her sister, who then lays out how stressed she has been, thanks to the death of their father, and how her sister seems to be talking about aliens. And wondering, is that moon really getting closer? The game has a dreamlike feel to it, where somehow things seem off." End quote. In this thread, many other Reddit users also chimed in agreement, saying that the game is trippy and creepy. It seems to be designed to make the players feel like they're going crazy. So it only seems reasonable that this game would be an inspiration for an elaborate internet hoax or an urban legend. Sad Satan, the deep web nightmare. This infamous horror game allegedly originated on the dark web. The game combines unsettling imagery and disturbing audio, leaving the player feeling uneasy. The game has been associated with alleged illegal activity, unsettling content, and claims of horrifying subliminal imagery. And part of the mystery is nobody knows for sure where the game Sad Satan came from. No one knows who created it. But one thing is for sure, you cannot pick up this game at your local GameStop. You can't even download it. Allegedly, the only way that you can play this game is by trudging through the hidden depths of the internet and going through a place like Tor, T-O-R, a free overlay network that enables anonymous communication. Now, I'm not very tech savvy, so forgive me if I explain this incorrectly, but my understanding is people can use the deep web and special tools to upload things incognito. So you can use Tor, for example, to upload these types of games anonymously. A while back, this YouTuber named Jamie Farrell, the Irish proprietor of Obscure Horror Corner, would claim that this is how he came across this mysterious game. He claimed it had appeared on an Onion site called Sad Satan, and that a few months before making a video about the game for his YouTube channel, a subscriber had sent him a link and claimed they found something creepy when they themselves played the game. So Jamie looks at all of this and he screens the game for safety, he does a malware check, checks for viruses, and everything seems okay. So he decides to play the game. Jamie would later call the game the creepiest game he has ever played. The game came with a file that freaked him out so much he ended up deleting the game off his computer. But don't worry, You can watch videos of him playing this game. He did play the whole game through. He screen recorded it. You can go watch it, and I have videos of that in the show notes. The file that he said was attached to this game kept appearing on his desktop with gibberish-like messages, symbols, and numbers. He also noticed a 666 a few times, which is often associated with Satan. He also claimed when playing this game, it started threatening him. So the game begins with you walking forward in a dark hallway. It's hard to make out your surroundings. It's designed to be quite trippy, though you can make out shapes. And the only thing you hear at first is footsteps, but eventually these other muffled sounds begin. They almost sound like a kid gasping. The area you're in also appears to mysteriously change, like a maze or some type of alternate reality. It's very disorienting, and the longer you play it, the more distorted the visual and auditory stimuli becomes. Eventually, the voices you hear turn into growls, more sinister sounds, and meanwhile, all your player can do is walk forward, giving you this sense of helplessness. Eventually, the player gets to the end of the hallway. They're greeted by a man standing at the top of a distorted staircase, wearing a suit and antlers on his head. The walls are covered in pictures and more sets of antlers. After this, you land back in the hallway, and the player seems drugged. Things are moving in slow motion, the audio's garbled. Then you start to notice the screen flashing with other images. You see a photo of Jimmy Savile and Margaret Thatcher holding signs that say NSPCC is great, which is a society that helps prevent cruelty to children. Savile, however, was a DJ and an alleged prolific sex offender. So this is when this game really takes a turn. It goes from just being this creepy horror game to having these sinister undertones of child abuse. Roman Polanski and other child abusers' photographs are also appearing throughout this game, hence the subliminal disturbing messages I mentioned at the beginning. The game appears to be some type of commentary on the horrors of child abuse. If this really did emerge on the dark web, part of me wonders, and this is a scary thought, but whoever created this game, do they support these awful, creepy people who have done things like this to children? You know, we can find all kinds of terrifying things on the dark web, allegedly. So that was something I thought about coming across this, is it may not necessarily be this thought-provoking art form of like, child abuse is so scary and so bad. It could be an homage to these messed up, awful people. So as this YouTuber, Jamie Farrell, continued to navigate the dark corridors in this game, he would also say he continued to see sinister and satanic imagery, weird text files, coded messages, Nazi-era photography, and a malformed little girl who let out a blood-curdling scream. He said the scream was so loud it clipped the audio in his headphones. Pieces of audio transcribed and studied by internet sleuths later also confirmed that the audio came from Polish spy transmissions, speeches from Adolf Hitler slowed down, and Charles Manson monologues. As for the person who sent Jamie the link to play the game, he claims he found it on a deep web forum. And he who wishes to remain anonymous would claim it was on an all-purpose website with tech help, reviews, etc. So putting a game like Sad Satan on this forum was already very unusual. The user also did not specify if the game was their own content or someone else's, but they signed the post with the initials ZK. ZK had also made other odd posts about Satanism, their dark inner thoughts and viewpoints. And Jamie's subscriber also said he tried to play the game himself, but he couldn't get it to work on his computer, so he decided to send it to his favorite YouTube gamer, Jamie, to see if he could figure it out. People have questioned whether or not the game was ever found on the deep web, though, in the first place. The link provided in Jamie's YouTube description in the initial video contains the number 9, which is a number unlikely to be found in any Onion links, which is where they claim this game came from. Jamie would say about this later that he intentionally gave his YouTube subscribers the wrong link in his show notes because the real one allegedly had gory and disturbing photos along with child pornography. He never shared the real link. So if that's the case, then Jamie is understandably protecting his audience, not subjecting them to these incredibly messed up things. But this could also fuel skeptics' beliefs that this was not really from the dark web. It has also made people question Jamie's claims. People also, of course, continue to question the game's origins. Many say the legend is semi-real, with there being a real game you can actually play, but it did not come from the deep web. It was either inspired by a real original game on the deep web or inspired by an urban legend. You can continue to watch people play some version of the Sad Satan game on YouTube. All of this to say, this would never be a game I would play, and there's tons of theories as to where it came from. One thing's for sure, Sad Satan remains an interesting, effective, and disturbing horror game. Patricia Hernandez, writer for Kotaku, would say about the game, quote, "Sad Satan is remarkably unsettling, even if you're just watching the game being played on YouTube. Partially, it's the audio, which works wonders for setting up a creepy tone. But in some ways, the crudeness of the game is exactly what makes it so potent. It adds authenticity. Horror is often defined by rawness, by its sharp edges. This is why found footage horror movies are a thing. This is also why early survivor horror games with shitty controls still managed to become classics. Horror is messy, in the same way that real life is messy. It's ordinary in the same way real life is ordinary, which means it could happen to you." End quote. Eternal Darkness, Sanity's Requiem. Initially released for the Nintendo GameCube in 2002, Eternal Darkness, Sanity's Requiem is quite similar to the first video game I ever played as an adult on a computer, Amnesia's Dark Descent. The game is known for its innovative sanity meter, indicating to the player how close their character is to descending into madness. The game's narrative spans across various eras and delves into Lovecraftian horror as well. Lovecraftian horror is the name for the famous writings that came from the horror fiction author H.P. Lovecraft. Players have reported creepy after effects from playing this game. They have claimed to hear whispers and experienced unsettling hallucinations. These numerous reports have led to the theory that Eternal Darkness is cursed. According to the game's subreddit, Games Horror Game Discussion, Eternal Darkness Sanity's Requiem, the game was released on June 23, 2002 by Silicon Knights and Nintendo. The game could be played on GameCube and was summarized by creators as follows. This horror story spans generations, so you must relive the blood-soaked history while conjuring spells, solving puzzles, and slaying supernatural beasts. Whether you're creeping around as the Roman centurion, Cambodian villager, or any of the other characters, the psychological thriller will challenge you to use your mind as well as your might. The story is historically based and features many significant real-world events and locations, including the blood-soaked fields of the Somme, the jungle-ridden temples of Angkor Wat, the deserts of Persia, and the haunted vales of Rhode Island. Playing as the character Alexandra or Alex Roivas, you're called to Rhode Island by the police, who inform you that your grandfather has been brutally and mysteriously murdered. You delve into his mansion, searching for clues. The sanity effects in the game also break the fourth wall, aiming to make the player question their own reality. Reddit user Razor Thought would say about this quote, "I would often ask myself, is this really happening? Sometimes it was a hallucination that the character was having, or a sanity effect designed to confuse the player. And yet sometimes it was something that was actually happening in this bizarre, disturbing world. Amnesia Dark Descent's sanity effects are decent, but they don't come close to what Eternal Darkness did. The lore in this game was awesome. I'm a huge H.P. Lovecraft fan, and this game definitely drew inspiration from his Great Old Ones mythos. The game spans thousands of years, and there are times that you play in the same location with two different characters at two different points in time. The lore even attempted to explain how real-life events came to be. The game took big risks lore-wise and mechanics-wise, and were all the better for it. The combat in this game left much to be desired and wasn't that great, but the pros significantly outweigh the cons, in my opinion. It was innovative, and I've yet to see a modern game simulate or replicate some of the things that it did. End quote. Throughout the game, as your health drops, you begin to hear voices, pounding on walls, creepy shrieks and moans. The camera wobbles, and the walls can even start to bleed. Breaking the fourth wall, the game will also have a suddenly black screen. It'll fake errors like a blue screen of death or deleted saves. It'll even pretend like you've reached the end of the game and you have to await the sequel to get the rest of the story. So this game intentionally tries to mess with the player, make them frustrated, make them think something's gone wrong with the game, like a technical error. It'll make them feel like they're going crazy. It's really good about breaking that fourth wall and making the game feel more immersive to the player. It seems like this game was ahead of its time, and modern horror games today still have not been able to do what Eternal Darkness did. Call of Cthulhu, Dark Corners of the Earth. I want to preface this by saying I apologize if I am saying this wrong. It is a tricky word. Call of Cthulhu. According to Wikipedia, it is pronounced Cthulhu. Similar to Sanity's Requiem, this game was also inspired by H.P. Lovecraft, specifically his 1928 short story, The Call of Cthulhu. The short story is centered around Francis Wayland Thurston, a man investigating notes from his dead uncle, along with other accounts describing a mysterious cult that worships a monstrous human, octopus-dragon hybrid called Cthulhu. This first-person horror game immerses players in a world of cosmic horror. Its cursed reputation seems to come from its troubling development. There were rumors of supernatural occurrences and a string of unfortunate events when the game was getting ready to be released. From bizarre accidents to alleged supernatural encounters, the curse surrounding Call of Cthulhu has become a cautionary tale for developers and players alike. According to commonsensemedia.org, writer Paul Simmel would say, quote, "In Call of Cthulhu, you're a hard-boiled detective in 1924 who travels to a mysterious island near Boston to investigate the death of a family. The cause may or may not be fault of the mother, an accomplished painter who either has mental problems or psychic abilities. As you talk to the locals, examine their surroundings, and solve situational problems that give you access to other areas and other people, you slowly uncover what may have happened, even if the explanation strains what you know about the natural world." End quote. Other people have jokingly called this game cursed as well, as they say it is riddled with constant bugs and glitches. So, either way, there's some type of curse that seems to be going on with Call of Cthulhu. Polybius, the Arcade Enigma. This fifth and final cursed game will take us back to the 80s. Fall of 1980 was the height of arcade games. Latchkey kids would rush to their nearest arcades with pockets full of quarters, eyes full of wonder, and the capability to enter new worlds and make lasting memories with their friends. According to the legend, in 1981, a few selected arcades in the vicinity of Portland, Oregon, brought in a new game for kids to experience, Polybius. Polybius was full of bright colors, exciting geometric patterns, and it was highly addictive. Long lines began to form throughout the arcade, with kids anxiously waiting for their chance to play this hot new game. But it didn't take long for dark rumors of Polybius to begin circulating throughout Portland. People began to claim this game was full of subliminal messaging and was leaving players traumatized. Kids were claiming to experience memory loss, seizures, blackouts, insomnia, night terrors, depression, mind control, and hallucinations. There were even allegations that this game was resulting in players completing suicide. Then there were the whispers of 2 Oregonian teens who played this game at their local arcade one day and mysteriously vanished. Additionally, there began to be reports of men in black suits showing up like clockwork and regularly servicing the Polybius machine. People started to develop these conspiracy theories. Had the government placed this game here? Were they doing some type of experiment with the CIA? Could this be an extension of the MK Ultra mind control experiments? If you don't know what MK Ultra is, I would highly recommend you listen to episode 14. Allegedly, 1 month after Polybius's limited release in Portland, all of the Polybius machines vanished without a trace. However, concrete evidence to prove this game was ever real remains elusive. The general consensus is this was nothing more than an urban legend. Flashing forward, the first public record of Polybius appeared online in 2000 on coinop.org, where a single image of the start screen provided the basis for the game's myths. And according to this image, the copyright for Polybius was under this group called Sinalsklotion Incorporated. I don't know if I'm saying that right, but it is supposed to be a term loosely translating to mind erasing, sense delete, or sensory deprivation in German. The game also shares the name of the classical Greek historian Polybius, born in Arcadia and known for his claims that historians shouldn't report things they can't verify through interviews and eyewitness accounts. In the public record found on coinop.org, the source also claimed that they themselves played the Polybius game. They also promised to bring it to Ukraine. In GamePro's September 2003 issue, there was also the first known printed mention of Polybius with an article titled Secrets and Lies. The article concluded that the existence of this game is inconclusive, sparking further curiosity into the possibility of if it was ever real or not. Snopes.com, the infamous fact-checking website, has also concluded this game is tied to the 1980s rumors of Men in Black, and the FBI continues to deny the game's existence. Additionally, magazines and mainstream news from the 80s make no mention of Polybius in the Portland area. This can confuse people today who Google Polybius because they will come across mock-up cabinets and games, but these are inspired by the urban legend. People might see these and think they're authentic, but they're not. There are theories that what inspired this urban legend were some real news reports that have been found that came from Portland in the 80s. One newspaper from Portland in 1981 wrote an article describing 2 teenagers that fell mysteriously ill after playing arcade games, with one getting a serious migraine after playing Tempest, and the other having severe stomach pains after playing Asteroids. But he played Asteroids for 28 hours straight. He probably had stomach pain because he wasn't eating or drinking, or maybe not going to the bathroom. He was attempting to break a world record. The FBI also allegedly raided several video arcades in the area 10 days after these newspaper reports came out, upon suspicion of owners using the machines for illegal gambling. The lead up to the raid also involved FBI agents monitoring arcade cabinets for evidence of tampering and recording high scores. So this may have inspired the urban legend that these Men in Black types of figures were coming in and looking at these arcade games. American producer and author Brian Dunning has also theorized these true events led to the urban legend. The urban legend of Polybius also seems to have inspired the 1984 film, The Last Starfighter. In this film, a teenager is recruited by aliens to play a new arcade game. In 2007, freeware developers did actually publish a free downloadable game titled Polybius for Windows. The team even adapted a corporation and named it Sinel Slotion to go along with the copyright in the urban legend. In 2016, Polybius was also announced for the PS4 and the PSVR, and it released to stores in 2017. The game, while inspired by the urban legend, reportedly does not attempt to reproduce the psychedelic and mind-altering effects from the original. I'm wondering if they had to give a PSA on that. Radiotopia even released a 7-episode series inspired by the urban legend titled The Polybius Conspiracy. While they initially presented themselves to be a non-fiction podcast and fooled me when I first started listening to it, spoiler alert, halfway through you find out it is a work of fiction. But still good stuff. In one episode, they interview a man who claims to be Bobby Feldstein. He claims he was abducted one afternoon in the 80s while he was 14 playing Polybius at the arcade Coin Kingdom. Bobby would recall that the control panel featured a dial, while other games at the time featured a joystick. It was difficult for Bobby to learn the game, and it also had these abstract geometric shapes and patterns that he had never seen in a game before. He played the game over the course of a week before he felt like he had gotten it down, but he soon began to experience addiction to the game and mind-altering side effects. After playing the game for a few weeks, he began to notice he wasn't feeling physically well every time that his character died in the game. He ended up biking home one day after playing, and he barely made it up the stairs. He was physically exhausted. He passed out in his bedroom and woke up with an intense thirst. He ends up going downstairs to get a glass of water, and he felt like something wasn't quite right. So he turned, and this is where he saw 3 people standing in his front yard in the shadows. He didn't know what they were there for, but they began to walk towards his house, and eventually they bursted through the front door, and Bobby was petrified with fear. In this moment, he said he felt paralyzed. They were grabbing him, and he felt one hand that felt very strange and foreign on his arm. He felt like the hand didn't have all of its fingers, and that's where he blacked out. Bobby then woke up in blackness, bound and gagged, and he heard this weird thrashing noise. And the next thing he knew, a little boy was shushing him and untying him. He had these weird old vines wrapped around him. And Bobby wakes up in this series of dark tunnels. The little boy helps him escape, he makes it out, and he ends up in the Tillamook State Forest, 60 miles away from home. The boy disappeared. They start doing this investigation, they think Bobby's lying, and then they're looking into like the guy who owns the arcade, this guy named Willie King, and he claims that the Polybius machine never existed. Bobby's making it up. So it's basically this big conspiracy, urban legend kind of story that personified from the original urban legend of Polybius. But they present it to be true. So it's a good listen, but just be aware if you do go listen to this 7-part series, it's not real. And regarding the original legend of Polybius, there have reportedly been persisting and varying versions of the legend, along with encounter stories online. So the question is, do you choose to believe any of it or not? So as far as possible answers for players claiming to have experienced hallucinations or weird mind-altering effects after playing any of these games we discussed today, I stumbled across something called the Tetris effect in my research. When someone dedicates vast amounts of time, effort, and concentration to any activity, it is known to alter their thoughts, their dreams, and their waking life. In its most simple form, think about what happens after you see a really freaky, scary movie. You're jumpy. You see things out of the corner of your eye. You swear you heard a weird noise down the hallway. That is the Tetris effect. In video games, this is also commonly called game transfer phenomena, or GTP. This can include visual, auditory, tactile, and even kinesthetic altered perceptions and hallucinations of reality. Scientists have been studying this through a series of empirical studies with over 6,000 gamers since 2010. Some examples of GTP are seeing images from the game when you close your eyes, hearing music from the game in your head, seeing power bars above people's heads in real life, or hearing sounds come from objects that you also interact with in the game you're playing. So for example, if you touch a cup in a game and it makes a ding sound, you might think that you hear that same ding sound in real life when you see a cup or interact with a cup. And I did come across several Reddit threads where writers describe these types of experiences. They seem to be more common after long and intense sessions of gaming. Awareness of GTP among healthcare professionals is also currently lacking, resulting in documented cases of misdiagnosed psychosis and unnecessary use of antipsychotics in patients experiencing GTP. Individuals with pre-existing hallucination tendencies are also more likely to experience the effects of GTP, although individuals who do not display these tendencies can still experience it. So all that to say, it can happen to anybody. Recent research has begun to also explore other clinical applications of GTP, usually with adolescents and young adults. And so far, there's over 20 studies that have been published. These 5 allegedly cursed video games have achieved notoriety because of the power of urban legends, combined with the game's eerie themes and unsettling gameplay mechanics. According to creepybonfire.com, quote, "While skepticism and speculation persist, their impact on players' minds and the gaming community is undeniable, whether due to psychological manipulation, real-life tragedies, or unexplained phenomena. These games have left an enduring mark on gaming history and continue to captivate those brave enough to explore their haunting realms. Remember, the next time you pick up a controller, be wary of the curses that may lurk within the virtual worlds." End quote. And that, everybody, is the perplexing history and some urban legends surrounding 5 allegedly cursed video games. I hope you guys enjoyed today's episode. I certainly enjoyed telling it and learning about it. If you did enjoy this episode, be sure to let me know. Drop a comment down below if you're watching on YouTube. If you're listening on Spotify, you can leave a comment on this exact episode. I always love to hear what you guys think. I read all those comments, and I just found out recently when you leave a comment on Spotify, it actually boosts it up the algorithms. So I would love if you did that. Also, a great way to support the show is hitting the subscribe button on YouTube and leaving a 5-star review on Apple and Spotify. That boosts me up the charts as well and helps me get new listeners, so that is much appreciated. And everybody, please don't forget, save the date, Wednesday, October 30th, 8 p.m. Central. I will be on YouTube Live doing my second virtual live show, ringing in Halloween and celebrating 100 episodes. It's going to be lots of fun, so be sure you're subscribed to the YouTube channel. And if you have a creepy or mysterious story that you would like to share with me, if you have a topic request, send all of that to perplexityMysteryPodcast@gmail.com. If you are just so perplexed and you need more, go check out the Patreon. If you want to go support me, go check out the Patreon. Patreon.com/perplexitymysterypodcast. I have tons of bonus content on there. I'm releasing new things pretty much every week. Documentary coverage, reading creepy stories from the internet, Texas Urban Legends series is on there, and now I have my Cursed Game series as well. So lots of stuff there. Early and ad-free episodes for just $1 a month too, so you don't want to miss those perks. Other support links like my Buy Me a Coffee link, my Amazon wishlist, and my merch links are down in the episode description. And I think that wraps everything up for today. You all are amazing. I hope you have a great week and stay safe. And I will talk to you next week where we will begin October. Woo! Bye, everybody.